Okay, this next module is about developing a vocational profile. Ordinarily, an employment specialist would meet with a client on several occasions in order to understand completely what the client's interests in work are, what the client's goals, long-term vocational aspirations are, what their strengths are. But in this demonstration, we're going to try to illustrate the process in just two brief episodes. So I'm going to ask Debbie and Jean to introduce the first one.
In this scene, we see the client meeting the employment specialist for the first time. They're meeting in the client's home that she shares with her foster mother. Meeting in people's homes or in familiar community settings is a good way to learn more about an individual rather than just sitting in your office at your desk trying to talk to somebody. We find that the role of the case manager is really important here, and what she's doing is she's trying to establish that relationship between the client and the employment specialist. She's pressed for time, but she does convey some positive points about the client, and she also conveys some positive aspects about supported employment. She's excited about it, and she's going to be part of the process.
Sure. Developing the vocational profile is one of the most crucial and fundamental parts of the job placement process. It's the time when the employment specialist, in partnership with the consumer, begins to develop the support team around that individual to help them move forward both in getting a job and then keeping a job over the long term. As you watch this video, keep in mind in particular, what does Crystal, the employment specialist, learn about Dawn's preferences and her concerns as they begin to talk about Dawn taking the risks that are involved in going to work. Also, keep in mind Crystal's response when Dawn suggests adding an important family member to the team, somebody who can support her, in the long term as she goes through the process of getting, keeping, and hopefully growing in her work career.
Okay, let's watch this demonstration.
Come on in, have a seat. Thanks.
Wow, what a beautiful house.
Oh, thanks. It's my foster mom's home. I'm staying here until I get back on my feet.
Thanks for having us over.
Thanks. Yeah.
Dawn, this is Crystal, the employment specialist that I told you about before.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I wanted us all to get together today to talk a little bit because Dawn and I have been talking a lot lately about her wanting to get back to work.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so I actually can only stay for a couple of minutes because I do have another appointment. But is it okay if I give her a little bit of a background?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine.
She actually has a pretty extensive work history, so I will let her tell you about that herself. Okay. But she can often be very modest about her personal strengths. So I just wanted to let you know what I know about her from working with her. And she's just really a warm, friendly, social person. So, nice. You know, and you mentioned last week that you enjoy working with kids. So right. That might be something you guys can talk about. I don't know.
Yeah, you bet. Would it be all right with you if I took some notes while we're talking? It helps me to remember.
Okay.
Great, thank you. So I wanted to say thanks again just for letting us meet over here at your house. It's really nice to get out of the office.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, of course. And Nicole got a chance to tell you what supported employment is about and what employment specialists do?
I did. She talked to me about going back to work and about you maybe helping me find a job.
Okay, exactly. And so, well, what do you think about going to work?
Well, I'm a little excited and a little nervous. I haven't worked in a while, but lately I've just been feeling really bored, so I figured maybe if I got a job, I'd be able to have something to do throughout the day.
Sure. So the excitement would be one advantage of going to work. Can you think of any other upsides of working?
Well, having an income would be a definite advantage.
That's always nice.
Yeah.
Sure. Anything else that would be an advantage?
No, I guess that's it.
Can you think of any downsides of going to work?
Well, I'm not quite sure what would happen to my benefits if I went back to work, if I would lose them or if I wouldn't. So maybe you could give me some information about that.
Sure. So that's a concern for you. Absolutely. But it sounds like at this point there are more advantages than disadvantages of going to work.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great. So what kind of jobs have you had in the past?
Well, I haven't worked in so long. A long time ago, I was a waitress. And
you guys, I'm sorry to interrupt. I have to take off.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and go, but I really look forward to working with you guys on this.
Yeah.
This is really exciting. So,
Thanks, Nicole.
Dawn, I will call you next week.
Okay.
Okay?
Thanks.
All right. You guys have a nice day.
You too. Good to
All
see
right.
you.
Thanks.
So you were telling me a little bit about some of the jobs you've had in the past.
Right. A while ago, I worked as a waitress. I worked as a waitress for quite some time, and that was a good job. I got along well with the people there. My manager was pretty nice. I got good tips, so I liked that job. And then I was working at a hotel as a housekeeper, and that just did not work out. I didn't even show up after the first day. So lately, I've just been babysitting, maybe like my neighbor's kids and my relatives' kids. So maybe I can find something where I can work with kids.
Okay, sure. So it sounds like you're enjoying babysitting.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, sure. And what is it about working with kids that you like?
Well, it's so different from my other jobs. Everything else was so fast-paced, and when I was working at the hotel, it was just so demanding. So maybe if I work with kids, I can get to relax and have a good time with kids.
Okay, sure. Have you thought about like what kind of jobs working with kids?
Well, maybe like a zoo. I know that kids go there for field trips, so maybe I can do something like that.
Have you ever thought about like an after school, maybe like an after school child care center or something like that?
That sounds interesting. Maybe I can do that.
Okay. You know what's really interesting? The other day I was in a grocery store and they had this little area set up for where the kids they're like being watched while their parents are shopping.
Oh, I've never heard of that, but that sounds good too.
What about like say a place like Chuck E. Cheese?
Oh, no Chuck E. Cheese. They'd make me wear a costume, and I don't want to work there. That wouldn't be a good choice for me.
Okay, that's not happening.
No.
What about like say like a daycare center?
That sounds good, but I don't know. I only have a high school diploma, so I don't know if they'd want me to have more education, if they want me to have more experience, and I don't have that kind of experience, so I'm a little nervous about that. So I don't know if that'd be a good option for me.
Okay. You know, recently I had worked with somebody that was interested in working in daycare centers. I got a chance to check it out, and I found that they normally just require a high school diploma and that someone doesn't have any felony convictions on their record.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you're interested, but one thing we often do when a person has an area of work that they like is we'll go to that business and check it out a little bit. So like we could go to a daycare center perhaps and find out more about what they're looking for with employees there and get a chance for you to look around and see if it's a kind of place you'd like to work.
Okay, and you'd come with me?
Yeah, we could go together.
Okay.
That brings up something that we call disclosure. And what that means is I just would want to make sure that you are comfortable with the employer knowing that you are working with somebody from the mental health center.
Okay, I'm not sure about that. I don't know.
Okay. Oftentimes what we do is we really just focus on a person's strengths and abilities and the skills that they would bring into the job and find out more about the position and try to stay away from talking about anything like a diagnosis. But if you would like, perhaps you could think about it and we could just talk about that more later.
Okay, all right.
Wonderful. But what I could do in the meanwhile is see if I could set an appointment with a daycare center and maybe you and I could consider going down there together.
Okay.
So I had one more question for you. Is there a friend or family member that you might like to have as part of our team that would support you as you start looking for work?
Yeah, I mean, I can ask my foster mom. She's pretty supportive, and she's always there for me. So maybe I can invite her, and she can help me figure out what would be a good job for me. Maybe I can ask her.
That would be great. We really love it when families get involved. If it works out for you, maybe we could meet early next week and you could invite her to join us as well.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll let her know.
Okay, great. Let me go ahead and give you my card and maybe we could talk on the phone and set up an appointment.
Okay.
If anything comes up, please just feel free to give me a call.
Okay, I will.
Well, I'm really looking forward to working with you.
Me too. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, now let's get some reactions from our panel members about this demonstration. Steve?
Yes, even though this demonstration was quite limited, it did provide some useful information about the client, Dawn. For example, the case manager was able to give some very helpful information about Dawn in terms of Dawn being a warm, friendly young lady who has an interest in working with kids, and also that she's both excited and concerned about going to work, which is really natural with consumers in supported employment. And she's also concerned about how work will affect her benefits, which is also a very big and common concern amongst individuals in supported employment.
Absolutely.
And you know, it keeps building in terms of the information that we see coming out of this, Steve. We also see an idea where the employment specialist is learning about Dawn's work preferences by her past experiences. We find out that she worked in a hotel. We find out she worked as a waitress. But two of the characteristics she talks about with those jobs were too demanding, and there was too much pressure on her. And so now she's sort of thinking about working with kids, which comes from doing some babysitting, which is interesting. And one of the things to point out here is the employment specialist doesn't challenge her on, well, you think working with kids isn't going to be demanding, but sort of instead embarks on a discovery path with her and suggests to her, well, maybe we could go visit a daycare. And there are some questions about what do you need for licensure, regular. Let's go visit. Let's sort of go on this journey together and find out together.
Well, and she brings up the topic of disclosure. And this really is an important topic for people about telling an employer, potential employer, that the presence of a disability. And so she provides a little bit of information for Dawn and says we'll talk about it later. But really, you know, I know this was a short clip here, but that's a really important topic that employment specialists need to go over with clients about what to say, when to say, and because if they are going to go see a daycare center, that's really going to impact on what Crystal, the employment specialist, can say or do.
I thought a really amazing part of this was when Crystal asked Dawn if she wanted to invite significant others, family members or friends, into her support team. That she left it up to Dawn to choose who she wanted to invite in, which I thought showed a great amount of respect, which I thought permeated this whole video. I thought that was really impressed with the way Crystal interacted with Dawn, a very respectful, empowering sort of a way. And also it, again, opened up that support network. This is not just you and I alone in the world trying to go down this very difficult and complex path. We have others around who will support you, and they will be primarily of your choosing.
Right.
Great. Well, thank you, panel members. Let's go on to the next demonstration. In this next segment, we see a follow-up meeting in which the employment specialist meets with the client, Dawn, but also with the foster mother. I'd like you to introduce it, Dave.
Sure, Bob. And again, this is another brief look at doing a gathering of information for Vocational Profile. But maybe one of the things we could think about here is what information is added. We've started to see some gathering of some information. What else comes in by the presence of the foster mom? And the other thing that sort of jumps out might be, what are the foster mom's concerns? What are her preferences? And maybe we could think about going forward, how could this be useful? How could bringing in, as Jean talked about, this support group, how could that be useful in the service of the client, in the service of the employment specialist, and the foster mom, and sort of moving forward in this employment journey? Let's take a look at that now.
Crystal, come on in. I want you to meet my foster mom, Karen.
Oh, hi, Crystal. It's good to meet you.
It's great to meet you as well. Thank you so much.
Have a seat, all right?
Would you like a cup of coffee?
No, I'll pass on the coffee. It's a pleasure to meet you as well. Thank you. And thanks to both of you for setting up this appointment at your house. Your place is really beautiful.
Thanks a lot.
And I just wanted to check and make sure if it was all right if I took some notes during our
It's
meeting.
fine with me.
I don't mind.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. And so I understand that you had some questions about supported employment.
I know nothing about supported employment, so anything you can tell me would be real helpful.
Oh, great. That's wonderful. We really love it when families get involved. So, Dawn and I are just really getting started working together. So as time goes on, we'll figure out exactly what parts of our service will be most beneficial to her. But some of the things that we normally do are, work with people and help them identify what kinds of jobs they're interested in, help with filling out applications and completing resumes, maybe some practice interviewing, and sometimes people, it's been a while since they worked and they didn't, wouldn't feel like they had an interview outfit that they felt comfortable in, so we would help find those clothing.
I was a little bit worried about what to wear, so I'm glad that you guys can help me out with that.
She really hasn't worked in quite some time. You do understand that, and so she doesn't have much of a wardrobe, and
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, as we get to know each other a little bit better, we'll just figure out what kinds of things I could be helpful with. So let's see, what else? Transportation, that's one of the things we oftentimes do. Job development.
what's that?
we would go out into the community to a job that, say, Dawn was interested in, and speak with the employer and maybe find out, if it would be a good job match for her, and perhaps set up an interview, and then also ongoing support where we continue to stay in touch with both Dawn and the employer as time goes on.
Well, I'm just kind of wondering what happens if Dawn becomes sick, if she has a manic episode at work. Most employers wouldn't. I'm not sure how that works. Most employers wouldn't really like that, and I want her to be in a supportive environment, not just to get a job.
Yeah, it sounds like you have some concerns, and I'm wondering if you and Dawn know of any, like, say, signs of if she was starting to have any symptoms coming up, if you see any warning signs.
Yeah, well, I've talked about it with my case manager, and I kind of figure out when I'm starting to feel a little bit different, so maybe I can give someone a call or even call my mom.
Can she do that? Can she call me? I mean, is that all right?
Well, we'd certainly have to check with the employer, but as far as, you're being available for a support, that sounds wonderful. And also, the rest of her team will be working together, and we can all work together to come up with a plan if things did start to get difficult for you for any reason.
That would be helpful.
Yes, it would.
So I do have some really exciting news for you.
Okay.
The last time we met, we talked a little bit about going to a daycare center to check out what that would be like. And I actually got a lead from a counselor that we're working at vocational rehabilitation for a daycare center, and they would be interested in having you come down.
Okay, I'd be interested in that.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I think what might be really great at this point is if we set up an appointment for later in the week where we could maybe get together and look around for an outfit, and also maybe do some practice interviewing.
Okay.
Excellent, excellent. Well, it was really a pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much, and I look forward to all of us working together.
Yes.
I'm excited for you, honey. I really am.
Okay. I think we learned a lot more from this second part of the demonstration. I'd like our panelists to comment on what they saw.
Okay, in this demonstration we see the importance of involving the family in supported employment services. The relationship between the client and the foster mother in this case is obviously important, and we want to see how the employment specialist values that. She asks questions of the foster mother, she answers them, and right up until the end even you can tell that she's including the foster mother in this process.
Yeah, as the proud parent of an adolescent with a severe mental illness, I really resonated with this video. Karen has concerns about her daughter, and understandably so. Will she have the right kind of work wardrobe? She hasn't worked in a while. What is this whole employment specialist process? What is the function of supported employment, and how do you work with an employment specialist? And in particular, what happens if Dawn gets sick again? If her symptoms of mania resurface? As parents, we spend most of our lives protecting our children, and so these are very natural feelings, and I really love the way that the employment specialist, in a very respectful way, answered those questions, and I think brought the team together in a really, really beautiful way.
And I think it's important to emphasize, Gene, building on that this is really the beginning of that process, that there might be other questions that come along that's important for the mom to know, to hear about. There might be ways that she can be a part of the natural support for people, for her daughter in some ways. And so really this is an opening to this, and I hope that as people think about this, they think that this does grow out. And the other piece that I think is real important, and here we see a stepmom, but also to think about family can be a lot more than just biological relatives, a lot more than parents for some people. It's supporters, significant others. And in this model, we really encourage people to think broadly about who are people that can support you with your work effort, and how can we involve them in this process.
And just as important, involving those folks by going out to them when possible.
Right.
It was very important and very beneficial for the job coach to meet the folks at their home. So when that's possible from a safety standpoint, it really can go a long way towards building a working relationship from the beginning on through the process.
I think those are very important points. It's a fact that sometimes family is just not available. it's not advisable to include family members into the treatment team.
Right.
And also, again, by going into the home, it's showing respect. It's not, we expect you to come to us, to our offices. We will meet you where you are, which I think is a metaphor for the whole process.
Right.
Okay, panelists, thank you for those comments. That wraps up our module on vocational profile, and we'll next go on to do the final module on co-occurring disorders.